Okay, what better time to do a top 10 books of 2024 video than in March of 25? Let's go. Let's go in descending order, and I'll start with number 10, which is the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. I had never read this before, either of these documents, and needless to say, it's, being an American citizen, probably good that I read them. They're actually rather short documents. In total, both of them, I think, are about 43, it was either 43 or 48 pages. But these documents are the Founding Fathers' synthesis of a summer-long research project into what the best form of government could possibly be. And they referenced texts from ancient Greece and ancient Rome and the many governments from those ancient civilizations leading up to essentially the 18th century, and tried to cherry pick the best aspects of each of those governments, and like I said, synthesize them into the American Constitution and Declaration of Independence. Coming in at number 9, we have Adam Smith's lectures on Rhetoric and Bell Letter. Now, these were delivered by Smith at the University of Glasgow, and these were reported by a student in 1762 to 1763. This is a neat little book because we get inside the mind of Adam Smith. Of course, he's considered the founder of classical economics and the founder of capitalism, if you will. Of course, most people know him from his book, The Wealth of Nations. But the ideas of Adam Smith were not merely limited to economics. They crossed over into the realm of morals and ethics, and these lectures are actually about him teaching, again, rhetoric to the students of the University of Glasgow, and I thought this was just very interesting. It was his take on how to be a good rhetorician, a good orator, and he offers advice on how to speak to people depending on who's in your audience, and how to be a good writer, how to structure arguments, how to read well, and he goes over the various genres like history, nonfiction, and outlines his ideas as to how history or nonfiction should be written in order to be considered good. Number 8, we have the Bible. I had never read the Bible from cover to cover. I had grown up reading the Bible stories, and I had known those stories. But this is over 1,000 pages, this book, and I thought it would be good to read all the way through because there are so many opinions on it. And it's a very polarizing book, obviously, and I wanted to know what my own opinions were. And so reading it cover to cover, I was able to better understand the depth and breadth of the nature of the content. One thing I know for sure after reading the Bible is you could probably read this once a year for the rest of your life, and you still would not plumb the absolute depths of that book. And all of the criticisms and all of the praise that's been heaped onto this book, after reading it through, I understand them. I get where people are coming from with both sides of the equation there. It can be a very difficult book to get through. In fact, it's probably the second most dark book on my top 10 list of 2024. But on the flip side of that, it's also an amazingly positive and uplifting book in several areas. Moving right along to number 7, we have King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. All names I was once known by in my past. This book is all about the various archetypes of the male psyche. And I think the most valuable insights that this book gives is it makes you aware of the lesser parts of your psyche that sort of inhabit your character from time to time, that cause you to act in a way that's not exactly yourself. And I think what this book did for me is it made me aware of the parts of me that were sneaking through the cracks that maybe shouldn't have been, and it also made me aware of the parts of me that should be coming through, and it helps you to achieve that balance because you're made aware of the parts of you that you want to accentuate and the parts that you want to maybe suppress a little bit more. At number 6, we have Leo Tolstoy's A Confession and Other Religious Writings. Now, this was my first foray into Tolstoy, and my gosh, what a book. This is the telling of his existential crisis that he had at about age 50 and throughout his 50s. It was a crisis of faith, and in order to solve it, he attempted to read every influential theological book there was, along with numerous other philosophy books, to go looking for that ever elusive answer of what exactly is the purpose of life. Why are we all here? And to go on the trip with Tolstoy and watch him think his way through that question, that was just a treat of a read for me. Moving on to number 5, we have The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. There is a murder in the beginning third of the book, and from then it is Dostoevsky stirring the pot of the characters that he has introduced to us and seeing how the family and the town around them interact after the events of this murder. This book is just wow. That's really how I can sum it up. It's got everything. It's a family drama, courtroom drama. Dostoevsky obviously is a very philosophical mind and discusses things like religion, the politics of Russia, nihilism, the powers of church and state. There's romance involved. This book just has everything. This is very much a character-driven story. It has a good plot, but I wouldn't so much say that you would read this because of the plot. You read this because of Dostoevsky's mastery of human nature, and you see how he does this at the height of his powers. He takes his characters from point A to point B, and you see a full arc of his characters, and that's the beauty, that's the art of Dostoevsky. Number 4, we're sticking with Dostoevsky, and what I have at this number is Crime and Punishment. This might be an odd take, but I thought that this was one of the most beautiful endings that I have ever read. It might be the most beautiful ending I've ever read. The reason for that is the whole book it's about the crime, essentially. And once the crime is committed, there's a series of things that happens to the main character from a psychological perspective. And that builds up to the ending of this book, and the way it ends with the main character's transformation is incredible. It's just incredibly beautiful. It's beautifully written. One of the things I noticed in reading Dostoevsky is that he is a master at writing the psychological shifts that occur within a person. He knows how to write how that happens. And so because of the ending of this book, how beautiful the ending was, I rank it one slot higher than The Brothers Karamazov. Okay, heading into my top 3 books of 2024. But before I do that, if you've gotten any value out of this video or found what I've said interesting, please hit the like button, and also comment down below to let me know what you think about my rankings, if you agree or disagree. And if you'd like to hang out in the future, I do movie reviews and TV show reviews, and I love talking about books. So subscribe to the channel if you're into that kind of thing. But let's get into my top 3 books of 2024. Number 3 is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now, this book is at the top of a lot of people's self-help lists. And for me, I think it was a product of me reading this book at the right time. The main takeaway from this book is there is meaning that can come from suffering, and in a sense, life is suffering. I do believe that, and minimizing suffering is part of kind of what everybody's task in life is, and we do that in various ways. And Viktor Frankl talks about how even in the most dire of circumstances, like his experiences in the concentration camps during World War II, he found different threads of meaning that were meaningful enough for him to pursue, and he found them in small things. That's the power of meaning, is that if you find that, whatever that is for you, it can sustain you and literally keep you alive through the most horrible things. Coming in at number 2 out of Athens, Greece, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Plato and his Republic. Outside of the Bible, this was probably the most complicated book I read all year in 2024, I would say. It has enormous depth, and I believe Martin Luther King Jr. said that if he were only allowed to take one book with him to a remote island, it would be Plato's Republic. And the reason for that is because the subjects in which Plato tackles are so vast that that this book caters to a very wide audience. And so through Socrates, Plato asks a number of questions and conducts a number of dialogues through which he constructs his very own civilization that is as just as he can possibly make it. And finally, the number one book I read in 2024 is The Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. This book is a framework for how to make good decisions. That in itself is incredibly valuable. It might even be priceless. But Aristotle lays out the best mental model, I'll say, in terms of how you should make a good decision. And he outlines this model through the virtues that he has come up with of one's character. When you read this book, you will learn a series of questions that you can ask yourself when you are trying to make a major decision in your life, or even a small decision. I personally think that this book should be read by every high school student because they are at a point in their life where they're going to have to make some very crucial decisions as to who they want to be, essentially. And this book is the tool in the tool belt for such things. Okay, so those are my top 10 books of 2024 given to you in the month of March of 2025. Better late than never, I always say. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you got some good information out of it, some good book recommendations, and I hope to see you in the next video.